Your personality has the biggest impact on your leadership. So understanding your leadership style, your personality can absolutely impact the way in which you lead your team and your level of effectiveness. That's right. So just knowing that you have a different leadership style to others within your team or the colleagues, the other leaders in your organization is really going to set you apart from other people. So let's go through it. All right. So introversion and extroversion. Now, this is really about where you get your energy from. And 50% of the population have a preference for introversion, even though it sounds like that there are more extroverts in the world, there aren't, especially in Australia. There's slightly more preference for introversion. And this can really affect the way in which we like to gather information and communicate our ideas. And so someone who has a preference for extroversion, they talk, then think, then talk. And what we actually hear is their thinking process. And if we hear someone keep repeating a similar theme, it's because they haven't come to a satisfactory conclusion about their thought process. And we just think that they're being superficial. And I think this is really important for a leader to understand that style. So I work with a senior leader who has a company and a group of leaders and who have a combination of preferences for introversion and extroversion. So he's very gregarious. He likes to bring his team together. He likes to brainstorm. However, he knows that that's not necessarily the best way to get the most effective input from his team, especially those who have a preference for introversion, because they like to think and then talk and then think. They like information ahead of time. They like it written down. And so he has had to broaden his repertoire of behavior to include those preference styles that aren't similar to him. And it has made all the difference because now, as a collective and a senior leadership team, every single person now has an opportunity to input into a meeting, into a discussion, and like into a decision making.
Yeah, and the opposite to that is someone who has a preference for introversion. So they would tend to or get sort of, their energy would be like dragged down by being around people all day and brainstorming. That is like for them.
Yeah, no deal.
No deal. That's right. And so again, they would like to see something in advance. And so they might do a lot of like send papers out or send thoughts out on, in their email and prefer people to have that one-on-one or small group discussion in order to make decisions and, get the ball rolling and that sort of thing. And so when you can understand that, and it's really just self-awareness, all of this boils down to self-awareness. When you're clear about, oh, this is my type and I am different to other people. So therefore, can I balance the way that I'm exercising my leadership within this team? Because betcha there are going to be, half your team are going to be, opposite to you.
And I remember we worked with someone who was quite a high preference to introversion in one of the top banks. And it was really important for this person to be connected to his people. However, he was really drained from doing a lot of public speaking, even though he was eloquent and an excellent communicator. So what he would do is he would craft a communication at the end of the week. And it was the week that was, and he would be able to communicate to his team and to the individuals in the organization what has been happening. And he did it in such a logical and an engaging way. And the other thing that he did is that he knew he needed time out. And so every lunchtime he would actually walk outside because he actually needed time to decompress and to think in order for him to be authentic, but also his best self. So understanding what your style is, you know what to dial up and you know what to dial down, because if you use a strength like too much, it becomes your greatest weakness. And I think that's why it's so important to understand. So introversion, extroversion is the first. The second preference is the type of information that you know, that you like and that you trust.
That's right. So most people are going to like information that is very sensorial. So is it data? Is it information that I've seen before? Can I draw on experience from the past? 60% of the population fall into that category. So if you are a leader of the opposite, which is really about ideas. It's about futurizing. It's about possibilities, change. You really need to be cognizant that most of the people aren't like that.
Mm.
And so I am working with somebody at the moment who has a preference for the opposite, which is intuition. And so interested in the possibilities and the future. And then a lot of the team members, because 6% of the population have the opposite type, are really interested in, so how are we going to get there? What's the here and now? Where's the plan? Where's the data? Where are you getting this idea from? So there's a little bit of tension building up. And the real opportunity for people with, an opposite preference for you, it's all about balance again. Oh, that's right. I do have a tendency. And when you think about someone who is an extrovert and future possibilities, that their happy space is brainstorming. That's all they want to do. But can you imagine someone with a preference for introversion and sensing, which is the opposite? I want the data, the detail,
tangibles,
I want a
concrete.
step-by-step approach on how we're going to get from A to B and in what time frame and how we're going to get there. You realize, oh, I really need to step back. And this is such a leadership building opportunity, because what you're doing is you are flexing your style. And you can't flex your style if you don't know what you're flexing from, like what your starting point is. And that's the beauty of this. When people get, oh yeah, people are different from me. I am the leader. I have the most influence in this team. I'm setting the direction. What are the little tweaks? And they don't have to be major ones, but what are some of those little tweaks that I can make to accommodate people who are different from me?
And so what we have seen in leaders who have this preference for the data and the detail is sometimes they can drill too much into the data and the detail that they lose that sight of the strategic view. And we often get called to coach people which their strength turned up too much then becomes their weakness. So it's actually, they need to be more strategic in their thinking, more broader and futuristic. And the understanding what to dial up and what to dial down is very important. So as a leader, if you've got a team, like 4 in every one of your team members want the data and the specifics. They don't necessarily like ambiguity and uncertainty, whereas people who are more the intuits, they can manage risk a little bit. They're more comfortable with that and they can see possibilities. So what is it that is not going to change? What do I know for sure? What specifically information and data can I give people to then springboard into the future so they know how to get from A to B, because they actually need a sequence in order to get from A to B, whereas the intuits can kind of like leap from.
Yeah. And that's why I think they can manage risk more readily, is because they're not in the detail and see, oh yeah, if we, make that change to the system, it's going to have this impact and that impact. But the sensors, they know exactly what impact it's going to have. And they'll tell you.
Oh yeah, straight up.
Yeah.
And so we had a look at introversion, extroversion, the type of information that like and trust. And now it's the decisions, like what is the criteria upon which you make decisions? And we're really coming from Carl Jung's psychological type. And he talked about this logical approach and the feeling approach. So if you have a circle divided in half, there are some people who are going to be more task focused and some people who are going to be more people focused as a preference. Now, for most effective leaders, they can balance the two. However, you are going to get your work done through people in a logical manner. So that's why you actually need the balance. And I think as a leader, if I have this preference for focusing on the task, very logical, wanting to do the best thing for all concerned, sometimes we are going to lose the understanding of the impact that my decisions are having on the people. And can I make decisions based on values of myself and the organization and also the person and the people that are going to be impacted?
Yeah, because when it's very or too task focused, there can be that sense of you have no empathy. Like, we're not just widgets that you can move around on a board. We are people with feelings, and you're introducing all this change. And while it looks good on paper, you don't understand that the impact it is having on me as an individual. And that when thinking types get that, it's so good because they go, "Oh, that's logical.
Yeah.
I just need to incorporate how people are going to feel
Yes.
in relation to this decision that we're making."
Yeah, and be able to communicate that. And that's a really interesting notion about, making decisions. You're usually kind of solving problems.
Mhm.
And human synergistics have a fantastic problem solving model, and it's called quality and acceptance. And quality is all about the specifics, about the task, about the data. And the acceptance part is all about the people and the values, the relationships. And you can have a fantastic solution to a particular problem, and you've got the specifics. It's very logical and really stepped out. But if you have no one that's going to back it, it's not going to fly. So you absolutely need to balance both. So really important to understand what drives your decision-making criteria, and is it balanced between, the logic and also the people and the relationship side.
Great. And then the last area is really about, so how am I orienting my leadership within the context of this organization? Do I like to have lists, get things done? Do I like things to move in a sequential order, or am I more flexible and adaptable and spontaneous? And this is where I can see some, and we've both seen some tensions playing out even in team meetings, because the J types always love an agenda and they like decisions to be made, done, completed, favorite words. Whereas the opposite type, people who have P in their Myers-Briggs profile, tend to be more flexible, adaptable, spontaneous. And so it's the processing of the information, it's the engagement that is really energizing for them, and that they get a lot of information and, can solve a lot of problems that way. And so, again, knowing, oh God, I just want a decision to be made in this meeting that everybody's talking, but they seem really happy about it and it looks like they're very engaged. Sometimes it's worth, okay, sit back. Do I really need to have a decision on every single line item in this meeting? And the opposite for people with a preference for the P, is, okay, we've been talking, we've gone around the circle a couple of times, and, we've had really good, rich, juicy discussions. But what next?
Yeah.
So that's their opportunity. What next? What now? What can we, action and put in writing and have some responsibility around?
And where we've seen it play out in leadership style is that if you have a leader who is very focused on the done and the next, and they're very focused on getting it done, they don't spend time acknowledging the successes and just sitting back and looking what it is that we have achieved. And if you're always looking beyond, there's sometimes what we have found a low level of anxiety in the style of leaders who operate primarily in that preference. Whereas people who have this preference for this proceeding, they seem to be less caught up in the, getting it done. They want it done, absolutely, but how they get it done is a little bit more flexible. And so if I'm a leader who has a high J and judger wanting to get it done, I need to perhaps have a question: what else am I not seeing yet? How else could I look at this from another perspective, from my stakeholders? Do I really need to make a decision right now? And I think it's really important to have that as a criteria. And then for a perceiver, perhaps turned up too much your strength, it becomes a weakness and you procrastinate over everything. Like you leave it to the last minute. You're always gathering information, whereas sometimes a timely decision is really important.
And I think that sums it up in about 20 seconds, really. The importance of understanding, what am I, what is my go-to type, where am I most comfortable. And again, if you want to grow as a leader, it's to get out of your comfort area that you're really good at, that is your strength, that probably got you to where you were as a leader. And that's what's going to make you such a great leader and a great person, and feel better as you flex your style, because that's what Jung said, is that you sort of grow into psychological maturity over time. And you will only do that if you take time to reflect on your style, what it's like, what tweaks do I need to make, what is best for this situation right now. That those people we have found
Mm.
have the greatest success in leaderships.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
scenario.
and that's what I love about that question is who do I need to be right
Mm,
now?
mm.
Like what styles can I bring into my repertoire so I have this flexibility? And
Mm.
we know that the greatest leaders have this flexibility in style. They have deep levels of self-awareness and the understanding of the impact that they have on others. And the world needs better leaders. If you found that video useful, then you'll be sure to find this one useful as well.